First, let's start by talking about the height of the snare drum. For me, this is a little low, but I'm the teacher, I'm tall, so this might be perfect for some of my middle school kids. Sometimes you can say, like, just bend your elbow and have your forearm parallel to the floor, and then wherever your fingers drop, that's where the drum should hit. Other times people just say basically belly button height, which is about the same thing. Another thing that's recommended sometimes is to line the snares up. You can see the snares are going through right here, this direction across the drum. Recommended to line them up so they're straight up and down, so you're playing over the top of the snares when you play. That's a little bit of a personal preference, and it's not always possible, but let's try that today. And let's talk about the basket. So you have, depending on the snare drum stand that you have some height adjustment and you might have some tilt adjustment. It's a little bit of personal preference. Again, it should never be a strong tilt, but a slight tilt is a good thing. So I'm going to loosen up the basket here, and you want to make sure when you do put the drum back on the basket that you don't, see, this is good because the snares do not line up with the basket. If you put this turned this way, that's not really good. You don't want those snares touching the metal of the basket. Okay, so I'm going to try this way. And the way this one's set up, this foot is right here at like 6 o'clock for me. So if I can, I'm going to turn the basket so it's not at 6 o'clock, and then my snares can be at 12 and 6. Okay, then make sure you tighten your basket back up. Stick selection. These are Vic Firth SD1s. They're my choice to give to my beginners, middle schoolers, and usually they work through most high school stuff. If you have a jazz band, you might want to get your jazz player some thinner sticks. Instead of the round beaded end, you might find one with a flatter, thinner bullet head, and it would be a thinner stick if we're talking jazz. There are a million variations out there. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed with the selection. Ask an expert, or it's really always okay just to choose one favorite type of stick that you have and get that for all of your beginners. What I love about Vic Firth is when you're teaching kids where to hold on to the stick, you want to cut the stick into 3 equal pieces and tell them to hold right between the first 2 pieces. Well, with Vic Firth, I can just tell them the shortcut is put your thumb on the flag. If they put their thumb on the flag, they're going to be holding it correctly. Some other things about holding the stick properly, you'll see kids do the pointer. You see them do this in mallets too. You want to discourage that because it prevents the rebound, and you're giving more down pressure and you're getting in the way of it bouncing back up. So you also want to prevent them from, and I see this a lot with my really little kids on ORF instruments in elementary, they'll tuck their thumbs like this. They're not really supposed to be holding on to it this way. So if you say thumb on the flag and then use these 2 fingers to do most of the work, thumb and pointer do most of the work. Now you'll see flyaway fingers sometimes. That's also not encouraged. Let them rest. They don't grip. The back 3 fingers don't squeeze. They just rest, and they're there for rebound. So if you see, if I'm doing something like this, they are actually working as sort of a stopper. And I can usually turn it upside down and show kids how that works. It's not a lot of this motion. It's just that they're there to prevent too much stick height. After this, I teach my students to knock. My teacher always taught us to fish cast. If you hold it upright, it's like you're casting a line. And I always tell my kids to knock on the drum with their hand. That is so they will avoid using their whole forearm or their whole arm, because we want the motion that is most efficient. So we can talk about stick height next. 4 to 5 inches above the drum is where they should begin. So if you see kids doing one of these, it's too much. 1, it's going to be too loud. 2, it's harder to control. They're going to go every direction. Keep them right here. And make them practice that. Practice the rebound to that height. Practice starting at that height and dropping at the right speed. And then kids might already know this. When you lower the stick height, it's going to become a softer sound. And when you raise your stick height, that's your accents and your fortissimos. Another way to modify the volume is to play a little closer to the center of the drum for louder things. And closer to the rim for softer things. You notice you lose your snare a little bit when you get to the rim. But then when I play right over the top of the snare, that's one good reason to have that snare at 12 o'clock. I like to use a hair tie to teach my kids where their sticks should be on the drum. First of all, kids like to play in the very, very center of the head. That sound is going to be dead. And we heard how way toward the edge is also dead, but it should be about halfway between the two. And I'll put a hair tie. Now this is an extra small hair tie. That's just what I personally use for my hair. But if you have a regular size hair tie, that would be perfect to place on the drum and have them aim to have both sticks in that same place. Because if you have kids playing way out on the edges, they're going to get very different sounds from each stick. And so if you have them aim playing here, you might run into them kind of knocking their sticks together, but that's not a super common problem that I have with my students. So just see if they can aim at that. You might need to tape it down. Let's talk about flams before we finish. So with a flam, start with separate stick heights. Start with a 1 or 2 inch stick height and a 5 or 6 inch stick height. And then you're going to trade places. So I'll do it slow motion. As they come down, just because of the natural stick height difference, they're going to hit at different times. One slightly sooner, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to flip their position. So the one that was the low stick height becomes the high stick height. And after a lot of practice, okay, and then rim shot, you might see, if you need a rim shot, you might see people doing one of these. It's a little more solid and dependable if you rest the stick with the 2 points touching here and here, and then you use the other stick to just hit the stick. That's a good rim shot also. If you see a student playing with cat paws, it's because that's how they think they can best get the buzz. Okay, so there might be some issues back here we need to look at if they're resorting to cat paw. I was a cat pawer when I was a freshman in high school. It took me a long time to learn or to be taught a different way to do it. So if you're looking to help your students get better at buzz rolls, I have a great trick. Just have them focus. Obviously, right-handed kids are going to be really strong with the buzz on their right hand and harder with the left, and vice versa. So have them practice their non-dominant hand a lot.